Welcome everybody to the Wealthy Supernatural Lives. Welcome to code number 17, linear waves versus spherical waves. Let's just go for a quick recap right now. Understanding that we have gone through the 5 functions of the Spirit, understanding the 4 elements and the 5th element, which is the substance of faith. But today we're gonna understand a bit more of what is happening at the level of our neurons, at the level of our brain, because if you're doing all the different elements, if you're doing all the different activations, but you also don't understand how to consciously descend and move into specific hertz, into specific vibration, you won't be able to access this. Okay, and I'm going to explain it very, very simple, the difference between linear waves and spherical waves. But I want to start with one question. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to manifest something and it didn't work? Have you ever tried to envision something and it didn't work, or it hasn't even become true yet? And you're wondering why not? Let me know in the comments below. And I'm gonna tell you that there's a difference, as we've been speaking in the 13 subtle bodies and in the order of operations, between what is actually 3D, what is actually 4D, and what is actually 5D. And there's a lot of people out there thinking that they're operating at 5D. I even heard a couple say, I'm gonna have a 5D baby. But they're not even yet at 5D. And the thing is, when you're talking about spherical waves, you need to get into a very specific vibration to give the information and to receive the information. I talked to you guys about in one of the other classes how with your third eye you could spin the chakra to the right or to the left, whether you wanted to receive or you wanted to give. Now, this is one of the functions that happens at the pineal gland level. Okay, the pineal gland is here to make the conversion between the beta waves and the alpha waves. Okay, so I want you to think about that for a minute. God has given us a specific mechanism at the level of the brain that we can study, that we can see, that science has already proven, right? And there's a lot of misconceptions about this because people think that decalcifying your pineal gland, for example, will awaken your third eye vision or whatever. And it's like, that's just talking at the physical level. But it is true that the pineal gland does hold a specific mechanism to translate the waves between the beta waves and the normal thinking mind and going into spherical waves. Okay, put it this way. When we're talking about telekinesis, when we're talking about putting your image, right? Remember, charged with the substance of faith. Not just any image, not just an image of the mind or an image of the soul, but actually an image that can cause an impact in the field. You need to be able to understand this concept and how to consciously go from beta to alpha. Okay, most people in our waking life, it's even as I'm talking to you right now, I'm in beta brainwaves. I mean, perhaps about 20 or so. And this is the vibrations that my neurons are making. And when it gets to a certain frequency, it gives this, and you can measure this. And this has already been proven with the CGG scans and stuff like this. And here's the thing. My wife, she is in alpha brainwaves, right? And every single coach, she has been giving you a specific model and example in the way that she's incarnating it, in the way that she is getting into it and embodying it. By the way, welcome. If this is the first time watching, my name is Andres Martinez and this is my wife, Luz Martinez. We're so excited to have you. By the way, if you are not part of the supernatural community, my friends, we're over 30 people now that are doing an amazing impact, that are learning this new technology. If you're not yet part of it, make sure you comment supernatural. It's the easiest, it's the easiest path into all of this technology and this supernatural community for less than a cup of coffee. Just comment supernatural, I'll send you the link, or you can just grab it somewhere in here. You can maybe see a comment down below. that gives you the link so you can subscribe and you can enter the supernatural community. Inside, you can literally start watching some of these classes, some of these meditations, doing some of these meditations and receiving activations to help you embody some of this stuff. Now, there's two levels of implementation because this is a lot. There's a lot of things happening here. I actually had people that watched some of my bigger trainings and they said, there's a lot of information here. I don't really know what to do with it, because you need somebody to hold your hand and to walk with you and to guide you into how to do this, because if not, it becomes very abstract. You don't know if you're doing it right or wrong. It's very intangible. So you need somebody to be like supervising you. That's why I have two levels of implementation. Level number one, you can pay me $12,000 and I'll walk with you for a 40-day sprint plus 20 days of integration to show you how to craft and launch and attract a 100K client, a 6-figure offer. Package it with your genius and how to embody your high feminine. This is why it's called the 100K High Feminine Accelerator. So you can learn how to manifest without lifting a single finger. So you can learn how to quit all the resistance of fear, of lack, of hard work, or trying to do, hustle, when in reality, creation happens like having a baby. Once the seed is there, it grows because of the life and breath of God. The woman is not there really trying and architecting and strategizing, how am I going to put the bones together? The woman is not there planning and making content pillars and making all the strategies and things on how the baby is going to talk or how the baby is going to use, his voice. She's just there resting. She's there in stillness. And then the baby grows. In fact, even doctors say, oh, you gotta rest, especially when the baby is about to be born. It's like you have to rest. Don't be out there trying to climb a mountain, trying to, run a business. So why wouldn't it be different for anything we want to manifest? And what I found is that the less resistance you put, while at the same time obviously being diligent, so that whenever the command comes to do something like this series of lives, you say, yes, my Lord, and you submit, and you do whatever prophetic instruction and action that God has for you. But this has nothing to do with you working in 3D to get a 3D outcome. And something you got to understand is that when we are moving from beta to alpha, when we're moving from linear waves to spherical waves, there is a very distinct sensation of the touch and the thought and the perceiving of it. Okay, when you go into alpha, you're gonna feel like time stops. You're gonna feel like you get access to your subconscious. You're gonna go into something that I call super thought. Now, when we think linear waves, you think, you create a thought and it goes through and it passes. But with spherical waves, it's different. And it can grab the whole field at once, and it's an image. Kind of like when you have a 3D image and you can wrap it around, or a virtual reality and you wrap it around. It's kind of like that. And the pineal gland holds that power to translate that frequency or that information to the spherical waves, which is now the component that can now directly affect the field and the 4D reality. Again, if this image though, if this command, even though it's spherical, but it's not charged with the substance of faith, you haven't activated the 4 elements that I talked about in the spirit, according to Hebrews 11:1, seeing it and confessing it and embracing it and being persuaded of it. And having this image so clear in your mind that you're literally seeing the evidence of things not seen, the evidence, then it won't matter. Even if you go from beta to alpha, even if you go from linear to spherical, if it's not charged with the substance of faith, if you haven't activated the 5 functions of the spirit, you're still operating at your soul level, you're still operating at your mind level, it won't work. Now, how do we get into this alpha state? Because let me tell you, it's actually very hard. I'm gonna tell you a story, okay, of the first time that I went into Alpha. So back in like 2018, I went through a really hard time where I went through a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of overthinking. I would literally, go for a drive and I couldn't get my mind to stop. I would go into a coffee shop. I would grab a like super cold drink and I would drink it, trying to get almost like brain freeze to get my brain to stop. I would go for a cigarette to try to get my brain to stop. And I was just trying so many things. I tried going to the gym. I tried just like changing my diet. I tried changing my sleeping schedule. Maybe if I go to bed earlier, maybe if this, maybe if that. Guys, I tried everything. And I couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't get out of my body. Started getting really, really bad. Even when I go right now in memory, like I still see that version of me in 2018, in that timeline, waking up with a hole in his stomach, saying, what is going on right now? God, please help me. Please save me. And guess what? I didn't hear anything. I wish I could tell you, oh yeah, I heard a voice right away after I said a prayer and everything was fine. No. It kept happening, kept waking up at 3:16 a.m. with a hole in my stomach. I couldn't even tell you anymore what I was afraid of, what I was anxious about. It came to a point that honestly, I was just afraid of life, afraid of being me, afraid of being seen, afraid of everything. And so I kept praying and I kept praying and I kept praying. And after 3 weeks, I remember I heard the voice of God audibly for the first time in my life. He said, Andres, like Andres. Said, you have to do a water fast because you are deep in chains of fear. I never fasted before. I was very scared to do this fast. But I said, God, if you give me the strength, I'll do it. And I said to myself, I'll take it one day at a time. Back then, I was in high beta for sure, like going into 30 or even more, like just so much noise in my head, so much confusion, had no clarity. I went sometimes into like episodes of depression or anxiety, just like not knowing what to do. And then I went into this first day water fast. After the first day, I said to God, if you give me strength, I'll do a second day. He said, yes. And I started reading the Gospel of Matthew the second day. I remember I read the whole book of Matthew. I've never done something like that. I never read the Bible, like one whole book in my life. I would read one chapter here and there. And in that moment, I was so desperate. I read the whole gospel in one sitting. No food. And every time I would get hungry, I would just read the Bible. Every time that I would feel anxious, I would just read the Bible. And I kept praying. And at the end of day 2, I heard a voice again that said, Andres, will you do a third day for me? I said, God, if this is your will, if you give me the strength, I'll do a third day for you. And I began even feeling at that moment how I was starting to go down in my neuron activity. Started going from 30 hertz to maybe like 28. Like I felt some relief, but I still felt like some crazy stuff. But the third day, something incredible happened. God said to just go by myself in the balcony and just meditate. And I began meditating. And I never really meditated before. But I just began crying to the Spirit, began crying out to God over and over and over. I was there for like an hour. And after an hour, in the middle of a day, I descended into Alpha. And I actually went into my first trance. And when I came back, I was speaking in tongues. I felt this fire all over my being, all over my spine, like going up, going down, just so powerful. And I began speaking in tongues and I began crying. I still remember how that felt. I began crying and I was just staring at the wall, just crying, being like, wow, you took away my fear and you gave me joy. You gave me peace, right? In one moment, going into this state that I didn't even know was possible. I didn't even know all these things that I'm telling you. At the time, I was just desperate. I was just more of a business guy, a coach. I was more of a digital marketing agency kind of guy. And honestly, I had no idea of all this stuff. Actually, I could have been teaching you business for a long, long time. I could have been teaching you how to close like big deals and how to close like just a ton of money. But God said, stop promoting just business. Stop selling your high-end client coaching accelerator, which we made millions with. Said, stop selling that. I want you to create a master pro. I'm going to tell you everything that you must do, which is my second level of implementation with the initiation, which is 1 full year with another full year of integration. And I give you the 12 rites of passage plus 1, where I put literally everything. And I carry you from A to Z. And I give you access to all the mysteries. And I initiate you into the mysteries of Christ within and how you can actually reclaim your true inheritance and all the spiritual blessings in heavenly places with Christ, according to Ephesians 1:3. Alpha. That day, I touched alpha brainwaves. But I wasn't that conscious. I told you I went into my first trance. But that day marked everything for me, because God called me to the prophetic. God gave me certain gifts. And the first one he activated was the gift of tongues. I began speaking in tongues after that day. Speaking in tongues in prayer, speaking in tongues in worship. This changed my whole reality. Remember, I gave you a class, I believe it's like class 7 or class 8, of these codes that I've been given about spiritual gifts and about spiritual warfare. Because all of this stuff is just more about what your brain is doing, what the pineal gland is doing. And again, it's important, but none of that matters compared to the spiritual things of God. And what happened that day was a true miracle. After that day, guys, I began hearing the voice of God so clearly that he would stop me sometimes as I'm driving to go pray for somebody to be healed. And I began healing people right, left, and center. That's when my gifts, my hands were activated. I began putting my hands in certain people and they would get healed. Like the man that schizophrenia left him after I put my hands and I prayed for him. Or like that woman that had cancer and then her cancer was gone. Or that other person that, just the whole leg grew, like this much. Like it was like almost a foot in front of my eyes. Or when I was able to heal the broken bone instantly of my soulmate. And so these things, my friends, are just small examples of the power of God, because I pray that God will give me the strength and the power and the magnificence to be able to heal with a handkerchief. Imagine, just this, and I could just send that to you, and then you're healed, or your mother gets healed, or whatever it might be. But this is possible because these things can be charged with the substance of faith. And here's the thing, all of that magic, but it really is not magic, it's really just divine law of God, operates at this level. Now let's talk about the waves for a little bit. Alpha, I already told you, it's really hard to get into it because we normally fall asleep. You normally fall asleep even before getting into it. When you're in like beta 10, around there, beta 10 or 11, like you start just getting so drowsy and you fall asleep. It's actually really complicated at first. And it took me about 6 months of staying, doing the void meditation and to just visualize darkness and to just not think of anything. Because again, even one single thought can bump you back into beta. and into linear waves, but we need spherical waves in order to affect the field, in order to, let's say, get into the bandwidth. It's like jumping from AM to FM, let's say, or from like short waves, to like long wave, but in the 4D, in the energy realm. Okay, this is very abstract for some people, but if you research some of these things, you will get more information on alpha, theta, but what they won't tell you is that theta is exactly the state where we go into dream space, when we go into 4D, into the astral realm. And my wife and I, let me tell you something. Sometimes we sleep for like 12 hours, 14 hours. We're doing so many things in dream space. And people are like, wow, you're literally making money sometimes in your sleep. And it's like, yeah, because we're seeding some things and then seeing the result in the physical. There's a lot of people that are working like 12 hours a day. We work in only a few hours a day. But sometimes we're sleeping a long time because we're working and moving in the dream space, in the astral realm. The theta state, again, to be able to do that consciously and go from beta to theta consciously, that's when you literally can just transition into doing astral projections or into doing like lucid dreaming. And you literally just feel like you just transition, even though your body falls asleep, but you never, like your consciousness is still there. Your consciousness body transitions. Whereas for most people, the consciousness body just goes and their astral body just goes and they are not aware. And then when they wake up with the alarm or in the morning, they're like, and then their day starts. By the way, if you're not keeping a dream journal next to your bed, if you don't understand your dreams or you not remembering your dreams a lot, like make sure you contact me, make sure you leave a comment, because we are like activators of dreams. My wife moves a lot in dream space. We can help you because, again, we are asleep sometimes even more than half of our lives. And there's a lot more stuff happening than just, weird images or the pizza you ate that made you have some crazy visions. There's a lot more going on. But if you can't remember, it's because usually your third eye, your vision has been severed. And so it's going to be really hard for you to visualize and put these images and do even the whole system that I'm teaching you here. Because, again, if your pineal gland is actually hijacked by the enemy and even by demonic entities, you might actually have had like certain contracts and certain agreements with demonic entities without you freaking knowing it, participating in all sorts of stuff like Wicca, like witchcraft, like paganism, like occultism, like divination, tarot, all this kind of stuff, and you can't actually see. You only see like the false light. So make sure you contact me for that, because we help people get delivered from all of these things and to get out of these chains that are keeping your spiritual vision and one of your main functions of the spirit with the fire element hijacked. Okay? Now, theta, my friends, is such an important state because, again, you're able to move into dream space. And I love moving into dream space because this is where a lot of things can happen. You can have prophetic dreams. You can have correction dreams. You can have healing dreams. You can have invention dreams. All kinds, my friend. There's a nice wide range of categories. And we see that throughout the Bible, God talks to us in dreams a lot. And when you move into Delta, you can even go into parallel dimensions. Okay, literally parallel multiverses, and not even needing like food or water like for days. There's people that like fall asleep, even their heart rate goes down, and it can seem that they're dead, but they're actually just having these insane experiences. Maybe Moses, when he was talking to God and seeing God almost like face to face, right? Maybe he was in Delta. There's some aspects about that, about how he was able to go into some really crazy states after like 40 days and 40 nights. Same thing with Elijah, that had like such vision and he could like move into realms. I mean, there's a reason why even Moses and Elijah were teleported to where Jesus transfigured. Remember that? And he was literally chatting with Moses and with Elijah. And Peter was like, kind of confused, like, do we make like a few tents for you guys? Like, what's going on? Like, people were like, they were just shocked. And with the cloud that came and said like, he is my beloved son. Like that must have been insane. And then suddenly they were gone. So they were literally taken out of their timeline and put into this timeline. They were able to travel in time. This you can do inside delta brainwaves. This is something I've never personally reached, delta brainwaves consciously and played in that dimension. Haven't gotten there yet. I've only gotten to theta and delta by the grace of God, but not not really consciously, or not that I remember, because this is a state that literally lets you travel to parallel dimensions, to move into another timeline, but not just in vision, like just moving completely, like being teleported into it. So I know there's people that are actually dream travelers, but there's people that are time travelers too, and they can actually travel in time. So these are like crazy stuff, there's so much that we honestly have no idea. That's why this all is an initiation. After you're initiated, there's so much more. This is just the initiation. So you can only imagine how much there is. That's why I love teaching these things, but I also feel super small. I was telling my crew the other day, I'm still working on transmuting objects, being able to do from this, turn it into, an apple, right? Like being able to grab the information, the informational field, the code of the subject, the structural code, and be able to change the properties so that I can signal the atoms and the energetic makeup of it to literally transform into something completely different, like an apple, or be able to transform into a pen. Like this is possible. This is how Jesus transformed water into wine, and how he could have, if he would have fallen to the devil's temptation, he would have transformed rocks and stones into bread. Jesus could do this, and he has given us the ability to do that. But sometimes we don't have enough faith, and without faith, it's impossible to please God, my friends. But let me tell you, a lot of the goodness and a lot of the superpowers and gifts start with alpha. But being able to get there, you literally need to learn how to not think and how to not process like a human, and to be completely still and to become nothing, nowhere, no time, no space. And enter this realm where there's infinite possibilities that exist, because you are not bound now to anything. You're not observing anything, and you enter this transition where the pineal gland transforms this information into spherical waves and into now full 3D images. Now I'm going to talk more about this when I go into telekinesis and levitation, but anytime you see an object, anytime you touch an object, you are actually absorbing the photons, which carry information. And when you do that, you literally have the information of the whole field of the object, which means I could literally just be looking at it this way, and by grabbing the whole field, I can see the back of it. Okay, an excellent exercise that I give to initiates when they're in the responding rite of passage is I tell them they can go and see an object, for example, a jar or a specific mug or coffee mug, and they only see it from one side without knowing if it has a sticker on the back or if it has a handle in the back or something, and be able to recreate the image, be able to grab all the photons in their mind movie, in their specific environment, to drain that information into a 3D image, in other words, a spherical wave, and be able to essentially decode the field without having seen it with the physical eyes. At more advanced level, like the kids I told you about and the organization I know, they're reading a book with their eyes closed. They're seeing what somebody else is doing and writing in a whiteboard in the other room. This is absolutely possible because our consciousness is not bound to time and space. Our consciousness is now outside of time and space because it's functioning in 5D, at least not the time and space how we know it. It's a different dimension of time and space. And so this kind of stuff is amazing mysteries, my friend. It's very worth it for you to understand how to transform linear waves to spherical waves, and how to receive this more subtle information and how to give this subtle information. When you do that, you're able to use your pineal gland and you'll be able to affect the field. Once again, my friends, if you are not part of the supernatural community, make sure you comment supernatural below. You can learn more about all of this stuff, not miss my replays, not miss the meditations that I've given, and the faith code meditation, and the 100K meditation I've given, and the 13 subtle bodies and the blood of Jesus meditation. Guys, there's a lot of gold already and it's only gonna keep growing. But guess what? The price might be going up because people are getting inside this community and things are starting to turn up, my friends. So if you're not ready to be part of that, you don't have an excuse because it's so cheap. It's less than a cup of coffee. I made it so accessible because this truth needs to be told to everybody. So literally no more excuses for people when they say, oh, it's a lot of money, like the initiation for 350,000. No, anybody can now access this for only $4.99, just to remove the tire kickers and the just onlookers. We want people that are committed to devoting development of their potential, development of their spirit, of their mind, of their energy, and understand really how these mysteries work. So inside the supernatural community, you'll be able to start your journey. But if you're ready for the first level of implementation, you can do $12,000 because I have 3 more spots for the fast action bonus. Okay, because it's 15,000, the 100K high feminine accelerator, but you can get it for only 12,000. Okay, so make sure that you comment 100K, that you message me, and I'll be like super glad to help you with this. But if you're ready for the full meal deal, if you're ready for like all of it, make sure you go inside the initiation for 350,000, and I can spend a whole year with you, one-on-one, unprecedented access, give you access to my Rolodex, give you access to specific codes. I'll be able to give you your identity key. I'll be able to understand more about how you work and operate at the level of the soul, so I can help you access telekinesis, teleportation, pyrokinesis, hydrokinesis in a way faster manner than if you just try to do it on your own. And I'll also include some insane surprises for you, including in-person encounters and experiences. And it's just gonna be this insane labyrinth and legendary journey for those who are ready for this level of experience and transformation, my friends. Okay, I only got 2 spots for that one. And if you guys want to hire me for 3 years to be your personal prophet, interpreter, your personal seer, you can do that for 1 million euros. Okay? This is only for those who are ready to shape nations, who need an advisor that can see in the spirit, that can interpret dreams for them, that can actually impart them gifts according to what they need for that key season. So there you have it, my friends. Hope that code number 17 was so powerful and that you're starting to get how the whole system works. Once again, make sure you comment supernatural if you're not yet part of the supernatural community before it goes up in price. It's only $4.99. It's the easiest way to access my field right now and to get a taste of what we're doing and the spiritual technology that we hold. And I look forward to helping as well those who do enter the 100K frequency and are ready to launch a 6-figure offer and be able to attract 100K clients and generate multiple 6 figures without lifting a single finger, without doing any inner or outer work, out of the healing loop, out of the hustle world, just literally receiving from your high feminine the seed of the high masculine and manifesting without lifting a single finger and just stepping into the unimaginable. Much love, and I'll talk to you soon.